What's up, Taiwan? I'm Laurel Stewart with the news from here in Taiwan and around the world. Activists have revived a pedestrian rights movement in Taiwan as protesters take to the streets of 5 cities, calling out bad drivers and pushing for safety measures. John Van Trieste reports.
Across the country, it's a weekend of protests by pedestrians fed up with the state of Taiwan's roads. The behavior of Taiwan's drivers has earned the country travel warnings from foreign governments. A 2022 CNN article even branded the country a pedestrian hell. A grassroots movement has since taken off, aiming to give sidewalks and pedestrian lanes back to the people. A year on from big marches in 2023, protesters are back to let drivers and officials know that the movement still has legs.
不管是老人、小孩还是一般的用路人，大家都可以有舒适而且走路起来安全的地方。
确实不够安全，你会需要时时就是左右张望，看有没有来车，然后有时候会一台车这样呼啸转过去这样子。
The agitation has had an impact. Since last year's rallies, the government's passed 2 pieces of legislation meant to protect people out on foot. Last year also saw pedestrian deaths drop to 380, a 16-year low. But organizers say 380 deaths is 380 too many. And protesters are focusing on one area for change: basic infrastructure.
大家觉得走在人行道上为什么还会被车撞？因为它是标线型的，它没有实体阻隔。
It's still not uncommon to see scooters in pedestrian lanes or delivery trucks blocking them as drivers drop off packages. And these protesters say that it all has to stop. Organizers hope 2 days of protests across the country will drive that message home. Howard Zhang and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
More Taiwanese businesses are expanding abroad as the country's direct overseas investment reached a new high in the second quarter. Taiwan invested $10.7 billion abroad between April and June this year. That's an increase of about $7.5 billion over the same period last year. Economy Ministry data shows domestic tech companies are fueling the uptick. The world's largest contract chip maker, TSMC, is funding projects in the US and Japan, while iPhone maker Foxconn is also investing in Europe, Mexico, and the US. Taiwan's military is showing off new domestically built surveillance drone. The Albatros 2 drone captured images of the military's precision-guided missile tests. The drone is the next level up from Albatros 1, with improved range and communication capabilities. The drone can intercept naval and air vessels and provide high-resolution images for intelligence gathering. Rare images of one of Taiwan's new military drones is showing how the country is investing in unmanned vehicles as it deals with threats from China. It's part of Taiwan's plan to build a drone fleet, taking inspiration from weapons used in the Ukraine war. Jaime Ocon reports.
In a promotional video, Taiwan's military reveals one of its newest approaches to warfare: strapping explosives to a drone, flying it through an obstacle course until it finds and hits its target. These unmanned aircraft, known as kamikaze or suicide drones, are still under development, but are a key part of efforts to modernize Taiwan's defense strategy.
I think it's exciting that we're seeing real progress in Taiwan embracing the uncrewed system revolution and really seeing some purchases and development of smaller drones like quadcopters. And I think that's a very positive step when we're talking about Taiwan developing an asymmetric strategy to deter and, if necessary, defend the island.
Taiwan is under threat from China, and it's been trying to find ways to boost its defense, as Beijing has a much larger military. One strategy is to shift away from older, more traditional systems like tanks and fighter jets, instead investing in asymmetric capabilities like drones. Drones like this quadcopter cost roughly $1,000, much cheaper than a fighter jet, which go for millions of dollars. Given the threat Taiwan faces, analysts say the country will need to incorporate both kinds of systems into its overall approach.
因为我们之前有解释过 asymmetric 这个 strategy 跟这个 conventional strategy 其实它是一个 mix 混合的哦。那在台湾来讲，目前当然是这是 more priority 更优先，也就是参考乌克兰成功的经验，它用很 low cost 或 low budget 去改装。
Taiwan has been looking closely at how Ukraine is using drones in its efforts to push back against Russia's invasion. There are now plans to build what the Defense Ministry calls a drone fleet, taking commercially available drones and upgrading them to a military standard.
What's cool about this capability set in particular, and again, sort of what we've seen in the Ukraine case as well, is these systems are all super easy to operate. I think for Taiwan, it's a good strategy because at the end of the day, this is about flooding the zone. It's about using large numbers of small things that will really help, punch China where they're the most vulnerable.
If all goes well, mass production could begin in 2025, getting Taiwan's forces better prepared to deal with threats from across the Taiwan Strait. Andy Shri and Jaime Okan for TaiwanPlus.
China has lifted a long-standing travel ban that barred its tourists from visiting Taiwan's outlying Matsu Islands. Although this only applies to travellers from Fujian province, people in Matsu hope it's a sign of things and business opportunities to come. Sandy Chi has the details.
For the first time in years, tourists from the eastern Chinese province of Fujian will be able to travel to Taiwan's outlying Matsu Islands, located just 19 kilometers off their coast. That's after Beijing announced the end of years of travel bans on Thursday, removing restrictions on both group and independent travel. The first visitors from China arrived in Matsu the next day, and Taiwan is preparing to welcome more.
在下个月开始，我们马祖的服务中心也将正式来开始运作。台湾政府一直采取就是开放的态度，那整个关键和阻碍当然在对岸，那所以我们希望所谓交流是有来有往。
Meanwhile, as Chinese tourists eye trips to the Matsu Islands, residents on Taiwan's other outlying islands, Jinmen, located just 2 kilometers from China, are also hoping to soon welcome a wave of holidaymakers.
应该有机会在近期呢能够来成型。大陆旅客到金门旅行一直以来都是金门最大的境外旅客来源。
It's been years since Taiwan last hosted Chinese tourists. China banned independent travel to Taiwan in 2019, citing the poor relationship between their governments. Then group travel was suspended in 2020 due to the COVID-19 pandemic. For Taiwan's part, its Mainland Affairs Council says they will continue to welcome Chinese visitors and the tourism dollars they bring to both its main and outlying islands. Chris Ma and Sandy Chi for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan may become the first country in Asia to eradicate 3 major swine illnesses from its borders. Taiwan stopped giving vaccinations for classical swine fever to its pigs in July last year, after a year of examination with no new classical swine fever cases since 2021. Agriculture officials are applying for swine fever-free status with the World Organization for Animal Health. If successful, Taiwan's status would be verified next May, making it the only country in Asia to successfully eliminate foot-and-mouth disease, classical swine fever, and African swine fever. The suspected knifeman that killed 3 people and injured 8 at a festival in Germany has turned himself in to police. This is the 3rd arrest in connection with Friday's attack in the western city of Solingen. The Islamic State has claimed responsibility for the attack, but there's been no confirmation from German police. Germany's Chancellor says the perpetrator will face serious penalties.
Eins ist ganz klar, solche Taten müssen hart bestraft werden. Wir dürfen das in unserer Gesellschaft niemals akzeptieren und müssen alles dafür tun, dass wir die konkreten Taten aufklären und verfolgen, aber auch alles dafür tun, dass sowas sich nicht ereignen kann.
Rescuers in Kuala Lumpur are searching for an Indian tourist swallowed by a sinkhole. Though the search has been expanded to several kilometres of sewage line, there is still no sign of the woman. Malaysian officials have not yet found the cause of the 8-metre deep sinkhole, which opened suddenly under a pavement. At least 23 people are dead and tens of thousands displaced in northern India after extreme flooding. Floodwaters in neighbouring Bangladesh are now receding, but many villages remain cut off. Rick Glowett reports.
Safe for now. Residents of Tripura in northeast India seek aid and shelter at a local school turned relief camp after floodwaters and landslides destroyed their homes. Officials say more than 1.7 million people have been affected in this state of India alone. Soldiers have been deployed to ferry people from submerged villages to more than 450 camps, where there is now a public health concern.
और रिलीफ कैंप में हम लोग ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा अब हमें चिंता है कि स्वास्थ्य पे लोगों के असर पड़ेगा, खासकर डायरिया के केसेस में.
Across the border in Bangladesh, water is receding in many areas after floods there left more than 30 dead and millions cut off without food, water or electricity. The race is now on to ferry those isolated to safety and get essential items to people in need.
টাউনের দিকে নিচে নেমে আসছে এখন এই মুহূর্তে আমাদের আসলে খাদ্য সামগ্রী পানীয় এটা পৌঁছানোর জন্য মানে পর্যাপ্ত বোটের প্রয়োজন এটা আমি কর্তৃপক্ষকে জানিয়েছি
Officials here warn that some areas will remain submerged for the next few days. This is at least the second time in as many months that the region has been hit by deadly deluges. In July, monsoon rains across India, Bangladesh, Nepal and Pakistan also devastated large areas of those countries. Experts say that extreme weather like this is on the rise as the planet warms due to carbon emissions. And officials across this region warn that the climate crisis will disproportionately affect poorer rural communities less well placed to mitigate the devastating consequences. Dolphin Chen and Rick Glowett for TaiwanPlus.
New hope has been born for the endangered Andean condor after a breeding project in Colombia successfully hatched a chick through artificial incubation. The chick, named Rafiki, was born after 2 months of incubation. Caregivers are using condor-shaped puppets to keep the chick from getting too used to humans. The plan is to release Rafiki into the wild in 2 years, helping bolster the wild population of a vulnerable species.
Es así como la Fundación Parque Jaime Duque plantea 3 líneas de acción principales para su desarrollo. La primera es el trabajo con las comunidades de los páramos para que eviten esas interacciones negativas con la especie. La segunda es hacer el monitoreo de las poblaciones silvestres para saber su estado real en el que se encuentra. Y la tercera, y es el nacimiento que estamos celebrando, es la reproducción ex situ bajo cuidado humano.
New evidence is shedding light on how a historic military village in western Taiwan was used during the Japanese colonial period.
修车的一个车道的一个车沟，好，那这个都是当时在日据时期战争的时候所建设的一个临时设施虽然是临时设施，但是也展现了当时的一个历史的一个脉络对护卫建国政策未来的整体规划以及发展具有特殊的意义。
A group doing restoration work at the Jianguo military dependence village in Yunlin found the remains unexpectedly. The settlement was used by the militaries of both Japan and later the KMT to house their dependents. The village was largely abandoned after the Cold War. Excavation of the site is ongoing. Taiwanese Paralympians who medal at the 2024 Games in Paris will receive even bigger awards this year.
帕运金牌的选手奖助金从400万元提高到600万元，可以按月领，每个月3.1万元。
Other medalists and coaches will get increased prize money too. President Leitingder made the announcement at a ceremony seeing off Taiwan's athletes. 13 athletes will represent Taiwan in 7 events, including table tennis, badminton and archery. Table tennis player Tian Shaowen won Taiwan's only medal at the 2020 Tokyo Games and will compete again this year. The Paralympic Games begin on August 28th. Thank you for watching What's Up Taiwan. I'm Laurel Stewart. Take care and see you next time.